Create Studio 3 doesn't technically have a way of lip syncing 2D characters. However, there is a workaround, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video, step by step. So in Create Studio 3, if you have a 3D character like Tom, as we have here, with some speech, all you need to do to lip sync is right click and select Sync with Tom, and then it's synced. Couldn't be easier.
I just love pepperoni pizza.
Okay.
I just love pepperoni pizza.
Now with 2D characters it's a different story because we don't have this sync with option. However, although there's no one-click lip sync function, the characters do have a talking action in their list of actions. So what we do is we use this talking action where the mouth is moving and we line it up with the waveform of the audio of the speech. So it's a manual synchronization, and you have to adjust it here and there to get it right. So it's not ideal, but it is a workaround. And the end result is the impression that the character is speaking. So let's get into it. Okay, so this tutorial is looking at all of the characters that are not 3D creator characters, i.e. not these ones here. These have one-click lip syncing. This tutorial looks at how to get lip syncing, or as close as possible to lip syncing, with all of these characters in here. Okay, all of the different character types in this list. So it includes 3D as well, because these 3D characters don't have one-click lip syncing either. So that's all of these categories: 3D, Supreme, Startup Team, etc. However, before we get into it, there is one category here called Classy, for which the manual method that I'm going to show you doesn't really work. And there's a reason for that, which I'll show you. However, it's not actually a bad thing. And the reason I'm showing you this first is because with the Classy characters, you can get away with not lip syncing or doing a manual method. So it's quicker. So I wanted to show you that first. So let's take, for example, the lion. So to get him to talk, we need to add the talking action. So when he's selected, you can either go up here to new action, or here to the right to add new in the actions list. And then when you do that, the actions menu will appear and we choose talking. And that has added the talking action to the timeline. So first of all, he's waving, and then he goes into talking action. So if you notice, the talking action makes him talk for a bit, then stop for a bit, then talk for a bit, then stop for a bit, mixed with certain body movements. So let's watch that again. Okay, and if we take any other character, we'll see the same thing. We'll take the chef, for example, and we give him his talking action. Let's let that load. Right, and you'll see the same thing. He talks, his mouth moves, then stops moving, his body moves around, mouth starts moving again. So, because these classic characters are designed in this way, when you add speech, it already looks very convincing. It's not perfect, but it looks very convincing. And furthermore, if you try to do the manual method with these characters, it becomes impossible because you can't control these stops and starts. So you can't really ever sync the speech to the movements. So I just want to show you how that looks if we add some speech. Okay, so I have some audio prepared here. So we'll put, I've got this speech for the lion, and we'll add it to the lion. I'm just going to give it an extra talking action so that it's long enough. And you'll see that the result already, because of the way these characters move, is pretty convincing. So,
hi, I'm a lion. As you might have guessed, my name is Leo. I am supposed to be the king of the jungle, but I can't find my crown.
So I think you'll agree that was pretty convincing. I mean, you could see it wasn't 100% lip synced, but it was pretty tight, and the overall impression is that the speech and the movement of the mouth are in unison. And then we'll just do the chef as well. Again, I'll add a talking action. And also at the end I'll add an idle action. Okay, right, so that's more or less the same length. Yeah, the speech is just about right. Okay, so let's see the chef. Hang on, let's make him a bit bigger.
Hey everyone, how about some spaghetti bolognese, followed by a spectacular chocolate cake? I guarantee you've never tried spaghetti or cake like mine.
I think it's really good, straight out of the box. Okay, so if you have access to the classy characters, then in terms of lip syncing and making the speech look like it's really being spoken by them, this is the second easiest option. The first easiest option is the 3D creator characters that have the one-click lip sync. But these classy characters also make it very easy. You'll see though that they're not all available on the standard plan, which I'm on at the moment. Most of them are available on the all access plan. Okay, so now let's look at the manual method of lip syncing the non-3D creator characters. So in a nutshell, the manual method uses the talking action of any character combined with taking a snapshot at certain points of their action and then putting it all together. So we're first of all going to do it with Grandma from the flow category. Here she is. All right. So the first thing to show you is her talking action. So if we go to new action, talking, and then have a look here. Okay, so you can see that her mouth doesn't stop moving throughout the whole talking action, and that's what we want, as we mentioned earlier. This is just the sort of talking action that we need for this method to work. Okay, so now we're going to add some speech. So I've uploaded some speech for her, which I generated in 11 Labs. I recommend you look at my 11 Labs videos if you don't know what 11 Labs is. One of the best, if not the best, natural sounding voice generator. Anyway, so we have this speech. We'll just listen to the speech so you can hear what she's going to say.
You're as young as you feel. Who wants to come on the roller coaster with me? I just love listening to my vinyl record collection with a warm cup of cocoa.
So something to note. On the audio speech here, we have waveform. Any place that there is any waveform, that's speech. Any place where there's nothing, that's a pause. So these pauses are what we're going to be using to enhance the impression of lip syncing. Because when there's a pause, we're going to make Grandma pause. And when there's speech, we're going to let Grandma speak or do the movement of speaking. To make the waveform a little clearer, we're going to boost the volume, and that will have the effect of raising the waveform up a bit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, so that the method is more obvious, I'm going to split the audio into 3 sections because she actually says 3 sentences, and I'm going to make the pauses between them a little longer. So if you can see, we have a pause here, in this area here, and another one here. Okay, the rest of the time the speech is continuous. So we're going to cut it. First of all here, and then here. And then we'll spread them out a bit like this. So the pauses are a bit longer. Let's have a listen.
You're as young as you feel. Who wants to come on the roller coaster with me? I just love listening to my vinyl record collection with a warm cup of cocoa.
Okay, that sounds more natural. I think the pauses before were perhaps a bit too short. So This has a better rhythm, more natural rhythm, and it will help us give the impression she's talking. Right, now let's get Grandma back. Now, right, so before we start, we have to address the fact that Grandma disappears before the speech finishes. So the way to do that is to make the talking last for longer. However, before we do that, I also want to add a idle action at the end, so that when she stops talking, it's not too abrupt. Right, so what we want is that the speech starts here where the talking action starts. So we have to select the speech, bring it up to here, and there it will start at the right place. And then we take the talking action, we take it by this node here. When the arrow turns to a double-headed arrow, we click and drag. We bring that out to the end of the speech. Okay, so let's have a look at that without any attempt at syncing up.
You're as young as you feel. Who wants to come on the roller coaster with me? I just love listening to my vinyl record collection with a warm cup of cocoa.
Okay, so as you can see, when she's talking, it looks good. When there's a gap, she carries on talking, so that doesn't look good. So all we have to do is fix the fact that she's talking when there's a gap. And that is the essence of this method. So the way we do that is we put the cursor where the gap starts, which should be where the waveform ends. So let's put it around here. Then we right click on Grandma. If this menu comes up, don't despair. If you right click again somewhere else, then the other menu appears. This is the menu that we want because it has the option to take a snapshot. So we take snapshot, and that appears here in our media bin. Right, so now we have our snapshot of Grandma in the media bin. Well, then we drag that down into the timeline, and we put it just where the speech stops, and then we click and drag the end of it so that the end of the snapshot coincides with when the speech starts again. Incidentally, to do that, you just put the cursor on the edge, on the end of the clip, either side. When you see a double-headed arrow, it means you can click and drag, okay, to trim out the clip or trim in. So now the next step, very importantly, and I'll show you why. You see, this next step is to avoid having this double image here. If you can see, the Grandma that's underneath the snapshot is still moving. Okay, so we can't have that. We want Grandma to be still in the pause. So we bring the cursor back here. We come to the main Grandma. We cut her there. And then importantly, we click and drag and we slide her over to the right until the main Grandma begins just where snapshot Grandma ends. Okay, so we have talking, still talking. Okay, and we're going to have a look at that.
You're as young as you feel. Who wants to come on the roller coaster?
Okay, so that does give the impression she's talking, then she pauses and carries on talking. So it really animates it. Okay, then we just repeat the process. Importantly, you can't use the same snapshot because the pose would probably change. So you have to always make a new snapshot at every pause. So here we are again at another pause. So I want the snapshot from this position. Right click, take snapshot, and we have a second snapshot. Drag that onto the timeline, and again shorten it, and again cut the main Grandma animation, Grandma character, move her over until she starts where the snapshot stops, and we have our second snapshot. Now, okay, here what's happened is something that you want to avoid. Her paused state has her mouth wide open. So that won't work well. So we have to watch that, we have to be careful of that because that just doesn't look good. So let's undo. Right, we've got to try to find a frame as close as possible to the end of the speech where her mouth is closed, or as close to closed as possible, which shouldn't be too hard because in this animation her mouth is moving very quickly. So let's see. There you go, we already have one. It's just 2 frames beforehand, so that will probably do us fine. Let's repeat the process. We'll right click, take snapshot, bring the snapshot onto the timeline, trim it so that it finishes where the next speech begins. Cut. Well, you know what? I'm going to push this next bit of speech a little bit further back, in which case we can trim out the snapshot, and then we can cut here again, move the clip over, and then it coincides with the beginning and the end of the pause, beginning of the speech. So let's see how that looks.
Who wants to come on the roller coaster with me? I just love listening to my vinyl.
There you go. So let's watch the whole thing anyway. Okay, so we've gone beyond here. Yeah. When you set the duration of the talking action, you have to set it somewhat less because you have to take into account the pauses. Because every time we insert a snapshot, the action gets pushed over to the right for the length of that snapshot. And that's why we have this extra gap here. So when you're setting the duration, still do it before you start, but set it somewhat less. You'd have to measure it with your eye and then do a fine tuning when you finish, which shouldn't really affect the overall animation at all. Okay, so let's watch that from the beginning.
You're as young as you feel. Who wants to come on the roller coaster with me? I just love listening to my vinyl record collection with a warm cup of cocoa.
I think the outcome is really good. It's not lip synced, but the feeling is that it's very unified and that it's certainly grandma who's speaking, gesticulating and expressing, which is what you want. Then the last step would just be to make a group. So you select everything on the timeline and then right click any of the clips and click group. And there you have a group that you can resize. So if that were your canvas, then you can put it anywhere. Change the size as you like, without having to do it individually across each clip. So that is the manual method. Okay, to finish off, let's just run through that again very quickly with a different character. Okay, we'll choose a 3D character. Okay, we'll choose Rohit. So we add the actions. All right, and now I've got some speech prepared. Here he is, the news. He's going to read the news to us. So let's position the audio where the talking action starts and then make the talking action longer. About there. I'll zoom in so you can see it better. Okay, let's separate the text again. Oh, I'll play it back for you.
Good evening, this is the news. Today aliens landed in Manhattan. A dragon appeared on the Eiffel Tower. A flock of fairies invaded the Queen's Tea Party in London. And Gandalf was seen walking in the Andes. Alright,
so that looks quite good. But just as we did before, I'm going to separate out the sentences. So let's zoom in a bit. So first cut here. Second cut here. Let's see.
A dragon appeared on the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I think this is also another cut here. And then final cut is here. Okay, now let's separate them out. Let's see.
Good evening, this is the news. Today aliens landed in Manhattan. A dragon appeared on the Eiffel Tower. A flock of fairies.
Right, I'm going to separate them even more, I think. Okay. There you go. Right, and we need to stretch this out. Okay, very important to remember, as we saw in the last case, to underestimate the length of the talking action, because we're going to have these pauses, these snapshots inserted, which are going to push it out longer. So we really need to remember to underestimate the length or the duration. So I'm going to say, we have to do it by eye. I'm going to say about here. That difference there is probably the same as these four gaps, 4 pauses. You only need to get it more or less right, but if you don't do this now, if you forget, it's an important step. If you forget to do it now, and then the talking action carries on after the last bit of speech has finished, then you have a bit of a problem, because you have him talking without any speech, and then you have to cut that off and use a fade to go to the idle position or the next position, which doesn't look quite as good. Okay, so don't forget this step. So that's all ready to go. So let's start. So the first snapshot will be here. So take snapshot, and there we have it. So we'll bring that in, put that there, cut Rohit, move him over, and then find the next spot. Just zoom in a little. Okay, take snapshot, put it in, trim it in, cut the main character, the main clip, move it over, go to the next spot, take a snapshot, okay, cut the character clip, move it over, and the last one, let's see, take that there, take snapshot, get it in there. Okay, so there you go. Oh, not finished. One last cut and move, and there more or less the duration of the talking action should coincide with the speech. All right, so let's play that back.
Good evening, this is the news. Today aliens landed in Manhattan. A dragon appeared on the Eiffel Tower. A flock of fairies invaded the Queen's Tea Party in London. And Gandalf was seen walking in the Andes. Tea Party in London. And
that's very odd. I must have taken the wrong snapshot. Let's do that again. Take snapshot. Right, this looks correct. Let's put that in. Okay, now we're talking, right?
Party in London. And Gandalf.
Yeah, a bit of an odd position to stop in, but anyway. As I said at the beginning, this is a workaround, and the best thing would be for Create Studio to add lip syncing to all the characters. So let's watch that from the start again.
Good evening, this is the news. Today aliens landed in Manhattan. A dragon appeared on the Eiffel Tower. A flock of fairies invaded the Queen's Tea Party in London. And Gandalf was seen walking in the Andes.
Okay, and then what you can do is you can take all of this and make a group, then get a background. Yeah, look, we've got a nice newsroom here. Could try this one. Oops, right, there you go. Right, let's just watch the whole thing back. Oh dear. Okay.
Good evening, this is the news. Today aliens landed in Manhattan. A dragon appeared on the Eiffel Tower. A flock of fairies invaded the Queen's tea party in London. And Gandalf was seen walking in the Andes.
So you've seen how that can work. You've also seen how things can happen which aren't perfect, like his last position that he adopts in the pause. So we'd have to spend more time looking for a workaround for that. So it's a workaround for a workaround. But in general, I think it's convincing. Do you? Please let me know in the comments below if you think it's convincing or not, or if you have a better way of doing it. So hope that makes sense. Please ask if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I hope this video is helpful to you. In case you don't know, there's a lifetime offer for Create Studio 3, which is a very good value, better than paying monthly. There's a link in the description below to the official website where you can see that offer and the details. Alternatively, you can just sign up for a month with no commitment and come off again if you wanted to try it out. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I will answer them. And if this video was useful to you and you want to see more like this one, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if you could also give the video a like, then that would be amazing. So thank you for watching.